Check, check, check. I just want to see, make sure this is coming through on Facebook and YouTube, and where else is this coming through? I don't know. Hey, Warren, is this coming through? Is this? Do I have audio?
Check, check, check. I just
There
want
we
to
go.
see, make sure this is coming.
Okay. So this is episode 37 of Dropping In at Pipeline Audio, and this one is Who Are You Listening To? And so first of all, I'm going to update on our plugin company. I was almost ready to announce today. I was thinking of showing it on this show, but not quite. But we're starting an affiliate program. So if you have a recording blog or music blog, whatever, do a lot of YouTube, whatever, we're going to be giving out affiliate links. So if people come to us from your site, we're going to pay you a commission. So let me know if you want in on that. You know, get me on Facebook or YouTube, or email me. You know, you guys know my email. So it's just about going. We're starting on some of the other plugs. We've got some of the heavy hitters. Keep missing some scheduling and stuff, but I'm pretty happy with how the intended market likes it. But you know how this stuff goes. There's a lot of just agonizing incremental changes on UIs and stuff. And none of us are artists, so really could use a graphical user interface specialist to tie it all together. But thanks to Bungle and some of the other guys, Clayton, starting to come together. So should be coming out pretty soon. In time for NAMM, hopefully in time for Black Friday. And, you know, watching the beta team go through this, depending on what it exactly was that they do for a living, was illuminating. The actual target market seems to like our plugin a lot. And yet people who might be users who weren't the original targets, but actually found some new uses for it, they have often mutually incompatible desires. Like there's certain features that somebody really wanted, and the other guys would say that, oh, no, you can't have that. This plugin won't work if you have that. And like, you know, I guess you could both be wrong, but you can't both be right. You know, it's kind of like watching different religions argue with each other, you know. So that's what's going on. I should have some stuff out, something to say by this week. So keep tuned, and you beta testers, please keep hammering as hard as you can on this stuff. I think we're just about functionally at a final build. Maybe you don't like the UI, but aside from that, everything seems to be working. Another thing, you know, just a funny thing is this week, you know, it kind of hit home again, just what the engineer's pay was. You know, if you were a kind of a crappy engineer back in the 80s and 90s, you were getting about $15 an hour. And so gas was less than $1 a gallon. You know, a house in Hawaii, $100,000 was a lot to spend. A house anywhere else, forget spending $100,000 on it. In this day and age, it's very hard to get $15. You know, you really gotta be on top of your game. Lots of times, since it's an owner operator kind of studio, it's all one price. The engineer comes to the studio. You know, $35 back in the day was kind of your welfare budget studio, and today $35 an hour is kind of a lot, you know. So it's just crazy how some things just do not keep pace. And if you think about, you know, in medical education, you do have to go to school for a long time, about the same. So maybe 12 years of college. You're probably not that good of an engineer for about 12 years of very hands-on education. And, you know, stuff you can't really get student loans for, and you really don't have time to have another job while you're learning it. It's a very, very difficult thing. Hold on real quick. Sorry. Okay, sorry about that. Anyways, engineers like medical doctors. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people don't want to compare them. It's about 12 years of school, no student loans, no side jobs, and your continuing education in medical is similar. You have a continuing medical education for some fields that you have to keep taking. Audio is everyday, things change, so it's just crazy. Our rates have not gone up, and most of the time they've gone down. So, kids, if this is the career you're looking at, man, I hope you like being poor. For me, with my health, just getting anything for this job is a blessing, so I don't mind. But I tell you, it makes things hard. So anyway, next thing, what I really want to talk to you today is talk about today is who are you listening to? Not what kind of music are you listening to or whatever, but when it comes to advice on the internet, just who is it that's giving you this advice? So first I want to talk about the appeal to authority, right? There's or you call argument from authority, appeal to authority. It's when you say that a claim is true just because somebody who really is an authority or an expert on the issue says it's true and no other evidence. That's the fallacious appeal to authority. So if you see somebody like Dr. Oz, he is the epitome of the appeal to authority. Allegedly, he's some sort of doctor. He doesn't seem to know anything about medicine, and he can never, ever, ever back up his claims. He just says, I'm a doctor, so you should trust me. That's a good example. There's a closely related one, argument from false authority. And if I go to Logically Fallacious, it's a good website for this stuff. Their definition is using an alleged authority as evidence in your argument when the authority is not really an authority on facts relevant to the argument. As the audience, allowing an irrelevant authority to add credibility to the claim being made. Appeal to false authority. TEDx talks come to mind. Sorry. You'll see them all the time. TED Talks usually is a little bit more strict on that kind of stuff. But both of these things really nail you in audio. I'm always trying to talk about, busting the marketing machine and all these myths. And especially when even people who don't actually have a vested interest, they're not really shills because they're not getting paid to do this, but they are just parroting the marketing machine all the time. One of my favorite examples is when some noob's asking for what pickups he should get for his guitar, and then the alleged experts, the alleged authorities, tell him, oh, well, you got a mahogany body, so you can't use this type of pickup. You have to use that type of pickup. I'm not going to get back into the tone wood debate right now, but just these people are idiots. They have no idea what they're talking about, and they're not presenting any real evidence. In fact, evidence is often a way to get you kicked off of these forums. If you do ask for evidence, you may get in a lot of trouble. So that's one of the things I want to say. Be prepared. Really, who is it that you're listening to? When it comes to these recording gurus, a lot of times you'll see that they often come from a certain background, or they combine the traits of different backgrounds. You'll very, very often see multi-level marketing people who had a background in it, or just people who are into those techniques, the life coaches or whatever, the self-affirmation, self-help, whatever kind of positivity speaking, just, the people who just, if you ever get a chance, go to the Deepak Chopra random quote generator. It's just what these people spew. It's just constant verbal diarrhea. It makes no sense. It kind of makes them sound smart. You hear Deepak Chopra always say this kind of stuff, just word salad. But if you use big enough words, maybe it sounds smart or whatever. That's a big one in the multi-level marketing stuff. And like in multi-level marketing, if you do ask for evidence, you will be shunned. It's That is definitely a no-no. Often they'll come from cults. They may not like it being called cults, but whatever the definition of a cult is. I guess more often than not, these people are coming from mega churches or what a lot of people call pastorship mafias or for sale type of pastorships. You'll see these kind of hope churches spring up around strip malls around the country. Where it's mostly about bringing people in and whatever they said in the Bible about rich man or a camel going through an eye of a needle. These people are all about money and money, and no matter what, it's sometimes they call it the prosperity gospel. A lot of the mega churches are also involved in MLMs, and so a lot of it is about marketing. It's about separating you from your money. And religions kind of come prepared for this because the people that they're dealing with are not there because of evidence, usually. I could say that maybe there's personal evidence for some people, but in general, they weren't reasoned into a religion. And so because they asked for faith rather than evidence or proof of any kind, it ends up as a really good audience to sell snake oil to. And that's what we see most of the time. A couple months ago when I was testing all this gear and it turned out that, most of this gear tested about the same. The best DI box I could find on the whole market was one of the cheapest. It was a $40 direct box. Reality is different than the preachers making the claims, One of the other places these people come from a lot are, honestly, when you go to recording school, wherever it is, it could be a real recording school, I should put that in quotes, or a community college or a college. And don't get me started on the highest echelons of college education in this country. The audio engineers are some that spew the biggest bits of this nonsense. No evidence. But anyway, when you go to one of these classes, chances are that your teacher was actually just a student at some recording school. And they really started teaching with little or very often zero experience out in the real world of recording bands. They really just came straight from recording school and started teaching recording. Not so different than a lot of fields in the soft sciences or the fake science degrees. Like if you're or not necessarily science, liberal arts or whatever, like you become a English professor or something. What can you do with that? Oh, you can teach English. So no real world experience usually. One of the biggest problems to me with that type of teacher is that most of what they teach in these schools is not about how to record, how to deal with clients, how to fix things, how to make things work, how to make signal flow make sense. It's mostly about buying gear. The job of most of these schools, like it or not, is to sell students to advertisers. And that's not just recording school. That tends to be most schools at this point. So it's not about recording. It's about gear. It's about marketing. It's about whatever's on the cover and the inside cover of Mix magazine this month. A lot of these gurus, we had a bunch of forum gurus, and I don't want to name names, but the biggest ones of all, they would always be, putting on this huge show and stuff. And when you really dig down into it, they write books, they own shops, they talk about all this stuff, and there's some super authority. And one of the most popular ones that we all used to talk about all the time, he has almost completely disappeared. I think he's working for some company. He's not really doing audio stuff. The biggest, loudest one that was attacking scientists all the time, I just haven't really heard from him lately. You can think of where we used to be, was the Womb forums, music player, or whatever. Think about where the super mega gurus from there are now. we don't hear much from them anymore. And there's a good reason. Eventually science usually catches up with you. If you make a bunch of outlandish claims, no matter how much you sell, you better be putting it away, because eventually these claims are going to catch up with you. And they seem to have. For all the attacking of guys like Ethan Weiner, he's still there. And it turns out that what he said was true. So anyway, that's why I ask, who are you listening to? One of the things that drives me nuts is there's kind of a Dunning-Kruger kind of effect by a lot of these guys. And, I always get mad about the RTFMs of the world, or the let me Google that for you guys. They often are doing that stuff so they can make themselves feel bigger and better and whatever. And when it turns out that they're really idiots. But, there's a guy out there who wrote two of the most talked about mastering and mixing handbooks. That, I don't know if you've ever seen those books. I think there's really nothing in there at all. But the Dunning-Kruger is incredible. You always hear this guy just super blowhard. And I think lately he's been talking about how crappy free plugins are. And there's a lot of free plugins out there that I can't think of a paid one that's as good, never mind better. So, watch out for the Dunning-Krugers. There's a lot of them. And in general, that's just people who think that they're a lot smarter than they are, but they're too dumb to realize how dumb they are. That's and we all, honestly, we all have a little bit of this. So me included, most definitely. So be careful when these guys, like I say again, make sure there's some evidence behind it. Even an authority is not right unless he can prove it. So one of the big ones that Christopher Hitchens used to say is that which is asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. If somebody makes some stupid claim and you're just like, can you back that up? And they don't want to, or they attack you for asking for evidence. Just ignore it. It's probably nonsense. Aaron Ra sometimes says when he's arguing with people, if you can't show it, you don't know it. And that, I'm sure there's exceptions to that, but that is pretty much true as well. And the fact is that most of the time these gurus are unwilling to show it. And, how many times have I actually showed, like actually measured stuff where they say, oh, this one has more high end, this one has a magical effervescence. If you can nail them down to actual terms, measurable terms, it turns out that they're usually wrong. The different things test about the same. What you will see is a fallacy. We usually call moving the goalposts. Right? You prove them wrong, so they're gonna say that the answer's somewhere else. Or sometimes you call it God of the gaps. So we didn't find a God here, but he could be hiding behind this rock. You'll get a lot of that. And if they start dancing around that too much, you could pretty much be sure that they're not only can they not prove their claim, they probably don't even really believe it themselves. And one of the funniest things is, they all say, like, a lot of these hype kind of channels and YouTube things and podcasts and Facebook guys, like all the guys you see hype and junk all the time. A lot of them are like, they're selling you, they're not selling you gear. They're selling you the ability to be a recording studio or to be a musician or something. And, if you only spend this pile of money with them, you'll be a bajillionaire too. And, it's always like a multi-level marketing thing. Like there always some more step that you have to buy into. I think they used to call it, what they call it, tools in multi-level marketing scams. You just got to keep buying more junk off of them, more courses and whatever. But what's really telling, you always read all these things from the alleged gurus about these giant consoles. If you ever saw the number of actual SSLs and actual big Neves that were ever built, you'd be depressed, because these guys make it sound like there's thousands of these built all over the place and all these rooms all over, and there's really, really not. And then what really, really drives the point home to me about whether these guys are, I do know that some of these guys are making a lot of money selling nonsense, but for the most part, when you watch their videos, they're like, oh, I could only afford one of these mic preamps, and then this one right here. And I'm like, well, that's funny. I got like 20, 30 mic preamps and stuff of, expensive ones, and I am broke. And so you're making $5 billion a second, and you can only afford one of these things? Yeah, I really don't believe you. So, I guess the last thing to leave you with is, sometimes we talk about this, epistemology. This is kind of the how do you know what you know? If you understand epistemology a little bit, you can usually figure out what questions to ask to see if what somebody's telling you is really true, or if that person really knows what they're talking about. I think the absolute godfather of modern epistemology is Peter Boghossian. He was involved in something people are calling the Skokal squared, or the grievance studies hoax. They got a bunch of just nonsense papers. The Skokal affair, a guy said that the fake sciences in college are getting so polluted that if you just use a bunch of social justice sounding words, you can get just about any paper published and get it cited. And he proved it by, I forget what it was. It was some kind of the transformative hermeneutics of quantum gravity in some nonsense journal. But Peter Boghossian and some of his friends went and did the exact same thing today, and it's even worse now. So he's a good guy to learn. One of his famous sayings is, if I want to know the width of a door, I could use a tape measure, or I could ask my dog. One of these is a reliable pathway to truth. And then somebody who really was a big fan of his, a guy named Anthony Magnabosco, started his own thing called street epistemology. And if you get on YouTube, you can watch this guy. I don't know, it's a little bit more for hipstery type of people, but he just talks to people on the street and just figures out how they know what they know. And so, really, until I have got to get back to hammering on building our plugins, but I'll have some real news on that pretty soon, and I'll keep you guys in mind. And hey, anybody out there with a music blog, music channel, whatever, like I said, we got affiliate links. Let me know. I'll give you those links. You're going to make, here, I sound like an MLM guy. You're going to make some money. But really, if people do come from your websites, we're paying you. So let me know if you've got, if your Facebook's popular with musicians, I don't care. Anywhere you can post affiliate links, I will be happy to get them to you. So let me know, and we'll see you guys next week, hopefully on time. See you later.